I worked night security on the cruise ship Blue Horizon, the shift nobody wants, the one where guests sleep and the ship makes noises it shouldn't make. At 2:14 a.m., the security tablet buzzed with a room alert. Cabin 928, motion detected, occupant not registered. That wasn't unusual until I noticed the cabin was marked vacant. No guest, no reservation, no luggage. Cabin 928 was supposed to be empty. I checked the hallway cam. Nothing. But 5 seconds later, the motion alert triggered again. Then again. Then the lights inside the room turned on by themselves. I radioed it in. "Control, I'm getting movement in an empty cabin." They paused longer than normal before responding. "Do not enter 928 alone." That's the first time I felt something was wrong. When I reached Deck 9, the hallway was silent. Cruise hallways are never silent. Someone is always laughing, drunk, or slamming a door. But this felt like walking into a hospital at 3 a.m. Cabin 928 was halfway down the hallway. The door was slightly open. I didn't open it. It opened by itself. A slow creak, like something inside was holding the handle. The lights were flickering inside. The bathroom fan was on. The curtains were moving even though the balcony door was shut. I stepped in. "Security. If anyone is inside, speak up." Nothing. I scanned the room. Bed perfectly made. Blank TV screen. No suitcases. Nothing touched. Just a cruise cabin frozen in perfect condition. I turned around. There were wet footprints on the carpet. Small ones, like a child's. They weren't there when I entered. They led to the closet door. My heart was hammering. I opened the closet slowly. Nothing inside. Just the smell of salt water. The motion sensor beeped again. The tablet vibrated nonstop. Something was moving, but the camera wasn't detecting a shape. Only the air, distorted, like heat waves rising off pavement. I backed out and shut the door. "Control, 928 is clear, but something's off. I need..." The radio cut. Only static, then a whisper through the static. "She never left." I froze. That wasn't a crew voice, and it wasn't male. I ran the cabin history from the security tablet. The system froze, glitched, then forced open an archived file from 3 years earlier. The log said, "Last occupant, female, age 11. Status, missing at sea." My stomach dropped. She disappeared from this cabin. Her parents claimed she stepped into the hallway and vanished. CCTV never caught her leaving. No traces, no body. The company declared it an accidental fall. Case closed. But the cabin was never used again. Until tonight. The hallway lights went out. Everything turned pitch black. Then the cabin door swung wide open. Not slowly, violently, like someone threw it open from inside. In the darkness, I could see nothing except the shape of a small figure standing at the end of the room. She wasn't facing me. She was facing the balcony, her head tilted slowly, bone cracking slow, all the way to the side. Then she turned around. Her eyes were black. Not dark, completely black, like the sockets were filled with ink. Her clothes were soaked, water dripping from her fingers onto the carpet. She whispered, "You're supposed to help me find my mom." I stepped back. She stepped forward, but she wasn't walking. She was gliding, feet not touching the floor, dripping water with every movement. I tried to run, but the cabin door slammed shut behind me, the handle locked by itself, trapping me inside. The girl's voice filled the room. "Why did you let them say I fell?" My hands shook. I wasn't here then." She floated closer. I waited in the closet. I knocked. I cried. Nobody opened the door. Her face twitched, eyes shaking like she was trying to remember something painful. "They only listen when I scream." The lights went blood red, and she screamed. A sound so sharp the TV shattered. The balcony door rattled. Wind blasted in. Curtains flew like something was climbing onto the ship. I pressed my back against the wall, shaking. "Please, I want to go home," she sobbed. Then she lunged, right at my face, and Everything went black. I woke up in the medical bay, 3 officers standing around me. One of them said, "You entered a restricted cabin." "Why?" I whispered, voice trembling. "There was a little girl, missing passenger. The officer cut me off sharply. "There was no little girl. Cabin 928 has been sealed. No one goes in, ever." "But the door was open." "No, it wasn't." I knew they were lying, because when I stood up, my uniform sleeves were soaked with seawater and my shoes were wet. Inside my pocket was a folded piece of paper, a child's handwriting, crooked, shaky, barely readable. It said, "Thank you for not leaving. Please come back. I don't want to be alone again." And under the note was the outline of a tiny wet handprint. Later that night, I reviewed the hallway recording myself. The footage showed me standing outside cabin 928, talking, reacting, stepping backward. But the creepy part? The door never opened in the footage. I looked insane, talking to a closed door. And the footprints? Not on camera. But when I zoomed into the very last frame, I saw something. A small face, pressed against the inside of the cabin peephole, watching me leave and smiling. I was standing on deck 14, watching people board the Ocean Crest, when the man next to me said something I'll never forget. He boarded before us, but his name isn't on the manifest. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. There was a man in a brown jacket leaning over the rail, staring straight down into the water as if waiting for something to rise out of it. His posture was wrong, stiff, like he'd been standing that way for hours. I noticed he didn't have a boarding wristband, no luggage, no room key. Yet every time someone walked past him, they greeted him, like they'd already met him. That was the first thing that felt wrong. The second thing happened during the night drill. We were supposed to stand in single lines, but people kept leaving a space, like someone invisible was standing there. A woman beside me whispered, "He was here earlier. Where did he go?" "Who?" I asked. "The man in the brown jacket." I pointed to the empty space. "Who were you talking to?" She stared at me like I was messing with her. "He asked me which cabin I'm in." Crew members pretended they didn't hear her. That was when I realized people weren't just seeing this man, they were interacting with him. The first night, the ship felt too quiet. Cruise ships don't get quiet, not with 4,000 people on board. Yet the hallways were empty, the lights dimmer than usual. I took the elevator alone. At least I thought I was alone. When it reached deck 7, the doors opened and the man in the brown jacket was standing right there, motionless, staring at me with eyes that looked wet, like he had just come up from underwater. I felt the temperature drop inside the elevator. He didn't step in. He didn't blink. He just whispered, "Do you know which cabin you're in?" I slammed the door close button. When the door shut, I heard him tapping on the outside. Not knocking, tapping, like fingernails on metal. I didn't sleep that night. At breakfast the next morning, 2 women were arguing with crew staff. "He was sitting right here," one of them yelled. "He asked us if we had phones with flashlights." "And you're sure he was a guest?" the crew member asked. "He had the brown jacket. He was soaking wet." I leaned in. "That man doesn't have a room assigned." Both women froze. One whispered, "Then where does he sleep?" The disappearance happened later that afternoon. A video started circulating in the ship's group chat. Shaky camera, people screaming, someone yelling for help. The video showed a female passenger running down the hallway, crying, repeating the same sentence. "He followed me into my cabin, but he wasn't inside when I turned around." She said she saw him walk in, but when she closed the door, the room was empty. And then she went missing. The crew tried to keep it quiet, but word spread fast. Room 7432, door left open, lights flickering, bed still warm, no sign of her. And the CCTV footage? It didn't make sense. It showed her running down the hallway, slamming her cabin door, then backing away from something inside the room, and then She gets pulled backward, violently, like someone grabbed her shoulders. But there was no one there. The timestamp glitched. Then the feed cut out. The official statement: passenger voluntarily disembarked at an early stop. There was no early stop. We were in open water. A warning flashed: crew only, deck 0, unauthorized entry strictly prohibited. And then, the screen glitched. A live feed popped up. A dark hallway below deck, with a single figure standing at the far end. Him, soaked, staring at the camera, and behind him, shapes on the floor. People, lying down, unmoving. My heart was pounding so hard I couldn't breathe. The feed pixelated, cut out. I ran out of my cabin. Half the passengers were awake, panicking. The PA system kept repeating, "Please remain calm and return to your assigned cabins." Nobody listened. A group of us pushed toward the main stairwell. Crew members blocked us, forcing fake smiles. "There is no missing passenger," one said. "There is no man in a brown jacket." A woman shouted, "We all saw him." A crew member stepped forward and whispered loudly enough for us all to hear, "You didn't see a man. You saw a manifest error. Go back to your cabins." Manifest error. Not even a good lie. Suddenly the lights cut out. The entire ship went dark. Screams filled the halls. People running. Doors slamming. In the strobing emergency lights I saw him again, walking up the stairs effortlessly, like he wasn't touching the ground. He moved through people, not around, through them. And every person he passed instantly fell silent, eyes wide, as if something inside them had been wiped clean. He turned toward me. Even in the flashing red lights, I could see his mouth moving. He was repeating my cabin number, over and over and over and over. I ran. When I reached the deck, cold wind hit me. Rain. Waves slamming hard against the ship. And then, a siren. Something fell from the upper deck. A body? No. A crew member screaming, "He's not a passenger! He drowned on the last voyage!" Lightning flashed. People gasped. The man in the brown jacket was standing at the edge of the deck, facing the water below, like he was waiting for someone to join him. A crew officer grabbed my arm and hissed, "Listen to me. He follows cabin numbers, not people. Whoever stays in the room he died in disappears." I swallowed hard. "What room was that?" He answered without hesitation, 7432. The missing passenger's room. The room he asked me about. The room I almost switched into. Before I could respond, the officer was yanked backward, lifted off his feet, and thrown into the darkness behind us. I didn't look back, because I could hear him walking toward me, slow, wet footsteps, stopping right behind me. He whispered the same question he asked everyone. "Do you know which cabin you're in?" I closed my eyes. His breath was cold on my neck. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, the deck was empty. He was gone. The storm calmed. Lights returned. Crew acted normal. But the next morning, a notice slipped under every cabin door. Due to unforeseen maintenance, cabin 7432 is permanently closed. I checked the manifest later. Cabin 7432 didn't exist on any deck plan, not anymore. But the wet footprints outside my door, those were very real. And some nights when the ship rocks just a little too quietly, I still hear him whispering through the door, "You're in the wrong room." Everyone who ever worked on the Radiant Dawn cruise ship knew about cabin A229. They didn't talk about it publicly, they didn't put it in reports, but behind closed doors, among the crew, it had a name: the passenger room. Because the passenger who stayed there never actually left. This happened to Mia, a 26-year-old solo traveler who just wanted a relaxing week at sea. Her cabin sat directly across from A229, something she didn't think meant anything at first. The first night, the knocks around 11:50 p.m. As Mia unpacked, she heard it. Knock, 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 slow, even, calm. She opened her cabin door and peeked out into the hallway. Nobody. Both ends of the corridor were empty, lights flickering the way old cruise lights do. When she closed her door, the knocking started again, but this time, softer, almost like it was happening inside the opposite cabin, A229. She told herself it was just someone arriving late. She slept, eventually. Day 2. The man in the hall. The next evening, after returning from dinner, Mia saw him, a tall, thin man, standing perfectly still outside A229, his hair dripping, his clothes soaked, like he had climbed straight out of the ocean. He stared at her. Not angry, not confused, just empty, like he was trying to remember who he used to be. When Mia blinked, he was gone. No footsteps, no door closing, just vanished into an empty hallway. Trying not to panic, she asked her cabin attendant later, "Who's staying in A229? The attendant's smile dropped instantly. He lowered his voice. "No one is assigned to that room. Not this trip. Not any trip." And he walked away quickly, refusing to say another word. The ship-wide 2 a.m. protocol. At 2 a.m., cruise crews run silent emergency checks. Lights dimmer, halls quieter. Guests never notice. But that night, Mia woke up to the sound of water. Not from her bathroom, not from above, from the hallway. She slowly opened her door, and her breath caught in her throat. The hallway carpet was soaked, completely drenched. A trail of water stretched all the way from the stairwell, straight to the door of A229. Then, click. The door unlocked. On its own. It opened just enough for Mia to see something move inside, a hand, pale, wrinkled, bloated from long exposure to water. It gripped the carpet, pulling itself back into the blackness of the cabin, before the door quietly shut again. Mia slammed her own door and locked every latch. She stayed awake until sunrise. The crew's secret. The next morning she confronted a crew member she trusted, an older bartender who had been on the Radiant Dawn for years. After looking around to make sure no officers were nearby, he finally told her the truth. 2 years earlier, during a violent storm, a male passenger from cabin A229 disappeared at night. Security footage showed him walking onto the top deck at 3 a.m., then leaning over the railing and falling. His body was found 4 days later, miles from where the ship had been. Yet the strangest detail was this. He was still wearing his A229 access card, which should have locked the cabin permanently after the investigation. But since his death, staff reported the same thing, again and again. Wet footprints, knocking, a dripping man wandering the hallway, always silent, always staring. The final day, Mia demanded a room change for her last night. They moved her 2 floors up. But when she checked out the next morning and walked past A229 one last time, the door wasn't shut. It was half open. Inside, she could see a puddle of water on the floor and a single wet footprint leading out of the cabin. And it was fresh, so fresh that droplets were still rolling off the edge of the print, forming a thin trail leading straight toward her old doorway.